There we go. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the regular meeting of the CalSTRS board. Jennifer, would you take roll, please?
It's your world, baby.
Oh,
For the Director of Finance, Ms.
could have just
Peralt.
done it for me.
For the State Controller, Ms. Gallegos.
Here.
Mr. Keeley.
Here.
Mr. Tang.
Here.
Ms. Yamamoto.
Here.
Mr. Gunning.
Here.
For the State Treasurer, Mr. Henning.
Here.
And for the Superintendent of Public Instruction, Mr. Delamini.
Here.
And Mr. Horace.
Here.
And Chairperson Bradford, you have a quorum, and I have a short statement. The CalSTRS board meetings are live web streamed, video archived, and available to the public on calstrs.com. Individuals who wish to address the board should wait for the 10-minute public comment period at the end of the agenda item the speaker wishes to address. For comments not pertaining to a specific item, there will be an opportunity for additional statements at the end of the open session. Each speaker is allowed a maximum of 3 minutes to comment. However, if there's not enough time for each speaker to have 3 minutes, the timing will be at the discretion of the chair. Please be advised, while criticism is protected, abusive language or other disruptive behavior that goes beyond protected speech and impedes the meeting's progress may result in the termination of further comment and/or removal if the behavior continues. To protect the privacy of speakers under the age of 18 who wish to address the board, only their first name and affiliated organization may be provided, but other personal identifying information such as their last name, age, or school may not be shared. And since the January Teachers Retirement Board meeting, CalSTRS has received 18 emails from members with questions and feedback related to the new mycalstrs.com Benefit Connect and customer service wait times, 2 emails from members relating to the processing times for receiving death benefits, 1 email from a member requesting an expedited refund, 1 email from a member who expressed support for AB 65 pregnancy leave for educators. That's all. Thank you.
That's all. Thank you. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here today. We really appreciate you taking the time and being a part of our work. A quick overview for today. We have a board education item on the topic of AI governance. This is the second of 2 speakers on this important topic. Today, we'll hear from Dr. Paramveer Singh of Carnegie Mellon University. Following that, our Chief Executive Officer will share some of our current activities and achievements, including a report on the board staff working group that was convened to define the board's responsibilities in overseeing technology and AI at CalSTRS. As I shared in January, it continues to be very busy across the organization and stabilizing our Benefit Connect pension administration system. As we're moving into spring, tax season and retirement season start to overlap, keeping them quite busy. And we will hear from our Chief Benefits Officer, Jeff Zimmer, about what we're doing to address the impacts to staff and customers as we adjust to our new system. Our first item of business, number 1, is approval of the agenda.
Move. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve our agenda. Without objection, we will approve that. Okay, seeing no objection, that is approved. And that brings us to the highlight of our day. Did you want to?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and introduce Dr. Singh, if you don't mind.
Perfect.
Welcome, Dr. Singh, to our board at CalSTRS. Dr. Singh was actually introduced to us through Michael Gunning, so we really appreciate the introduction. And our board staff working group has already had a presentation from Dr. Singh, who delivered a really thoughtful content around AI governance at organizations and his perspective on those. We thought that information was very enlightening and wanted to share the entire presentation with the board, and we invited Dr. Singh up to present that information and take questions from the board as we continue the pursuit and how the board is going to be moving forward in the governance of technology and AI at CalSTRS. So his bio's in the material. You could read it at your leisure. You probably already have, I'm sure. But Dr. Singh, thank you for being here, and you can go ahead and begin it as you'd like.
It's my pleasure to be here. I'm really honored to come here and talk about AI and governance. Let me see if I can. My presentation comes here. Okay. Okay. So this whole issue of AI and governance, this is actually what every company is talking about. Like CalSTRS is not the only one. Every company that I talk to, they're talking about how the board should be governing AI. And particularly for an organization like CalSTRS, which is a long horizon corporation and it has public responsibility, AI governance becomes even more important. Like this is even more important than what would be for a venture-backed tech firm. So here we cannot make decisions which would be like, let's move early and later we will figure it out how the impact of AI is going to be. And now to set the stage here, like what we will talk about. So we won't talk about, this is not a technical session. This is not going to get into how AI models work or how neural networks or data centers work and so on. This is all about governance. The idea here, which I want to convey throughout is, what is the role of the board, particularly when AI starts having an impact on decision making? So what should you be doing as an organization? Right? So, and AI is going to have an impact on the organization down the line. When should you be stepping in to say, here is some information that we need before, and how are you going to govern that part? As we go along the session, there is one thing as board members that I would want you guys to keep in the back of your mind is, let's say down the line, few years down the line, there is some AI supported decision which has not gone very well. So who should have asked the right question today? That's what the board's responsibility comes to. And most of the challenges with AI typically come few years down the line. So just to give you one or two examples of this, one is there was this particular healthcare situation where the hospital system used AI to decide which patients in triage should be prioritized quickly or not. And in the very beginning, it looked like a great idea. AI system is actually figuring out who should be given more resources. And it was based on, and how did the system figure out who should be given more resources? It was based on who has spent more money in the past. So they thought this was the person who needed more healthcare needs. We'll do it. Few years or even like few months down the lane, what you realize immediately is it was actually prioritizing care of people who already were spending a lot more, and it was actually taking away from people who have less insurance benefits to begin with. Now the question then comes to the board at that time, did the board actually look at what were the risks when this kind of a system was coming up? It was not about whether this was an innovative system. It was what were the questions you asked? Did you check like what could be the risk of this going forward? And if the risk was to show up in future and people were to figure out that this is a problem, what was put in place to address this issue? So that's the way when the board thinks about AI. It's not about what algorithm is being used. It's more about like how is it going to change the decisions and the rights of the people, and who is going to be accountable for that. That's the part of that's the real responsibility of the board. So moving on, and I would like this to be more of a dialogue. If you have more questions, I'll encourage, please share in your perspective, as well as if you have specific questions you want me to dig into. So before we go on, let's look at one of the things with AI governance which comes up is that to have some sort of AI fluency. And that has been moving really fast, actually. 5 years ago, like people were not talking about AI fluency. Now everyone is talking about AI fluency. So now the one question is, does AI fluency even matter? So let's look at some very high level research findings that have been there, which are trying to see whether AI fluency of the board has any impact on the firm performance. Right, so there are these studies that have come out of MIT as well as UK studies. They come up. They looked at thousands of UK and US based companies. And what they found is that AI fluency of the board of directors is actually very highly related with performance of the firm. Firms which have boards which have AI fluency, they tend to have 34% higher ROA, 38% more revenue growth. And quite interestingly, what they found is that you need at least 3 tech-savvy directors on the board. And it was like if you have 1 director or 2 directors, it tends to have no impact in terms of firm performance. You need some core level of AI fluency on the board. So the the thing to think about it, I've seen myself on some of the boards, when you have one really highly talented, like some sort of a CTO background person who is sitting on the board and providing that technical fluency, just typically what happens in those cases is whenever there is an issue that comes up related to AI, typically they turn to that member and ask, does that sound okay? And the person says yes, and it moves on. So you get somebody on the board, but you don't really get an oversight about AI on the board. So that's why collective understanding is essentially needed. And we'll talk about today on that it's not just having like putting AI experts on the board. It is actually having some level of AI common fluency so that you need to know what are the right questions to ask. And that we will get into. Now, we talk about like this is at least 3 tech-savvy directors are needed. And every company is investing in AI. Like there was this Wall Street Journal article which was telling $1.5 trillion have been invested by companies in AI. So everybody is thinking about AI. But the harsh reality is that most boards lack sufficient AI and digital fluency currently. Right? Less than 5% of boards have 3+ digitally fluent directors at this time. So it's not very widespread expertise out there. And if you look at S&P 500 companies and their boards, only 13% have technology committees. Right? So when I say technology committee, that does not mean that they have AI expertise. This is just technology committee out there. Many of them may not even have AI expertise on that. Right? And when you look at financial services, actually financial services is the sector which is leading in this space, because that's where AI is having a bigger impact. And that number has gone to 22%. They are the leader among all the sectors. And this number actually has doubled over the last 10 years. So they are the ones who are really going after and getting expertise related to AI on their boards so that they can ask the right questions. Now, when we think about this, this is not like these companies have been have not been focusing on AI at all, and they're not doing their job. That's not the reason why there is not enough AI expertise on the board. The whole thing is in the last 5 years, AI has really come upon us. Before that, or even in the early days of as LLMs came up, everybody was thinking AI is something that companies are experimenting with and are piloting something at this time. It was not taken as seriously. And now there is increasing pressure that every company is trying to do something with AI. And suddenly boards are starting to ask, where is the ROI on this? And that's where these questions are coming up right now. Now, as I said, there is, like when we look at even S&P 500 firms, they're only 13% with technology committee, even less with the AI expertise. When you look at CalSTRS kind of company, which have your statutory boards and so on, it's going to be even harder to find AI expertise to bring on the board. And that is actually even more widespread. I was looking through many of these organizations similar to CalSTRS. AI expertise is not there on the boards, essentially. So what do companies actually do? What should organizations like CalSTRS do or others do to bring in AI fluency on the board? So there are kind of 4 different things that we have observed so far. The first thing, which is the most common thing, is do nothing. Okay? It's completely nothing. You believe. You depend on the management, and management tells you this is what we are thinking. You talk to the CTO and they tell this is the right way to do it. And you go ahead with it. This is the most common approach out there, right? But you don't get AI expertise and AI oversight at all if you do go that route. Then the second many are trying to do is add one tech or AI expert director on the board. And even that, as we talked about, that doesn't really bring AI oversight on the board itself. Right? You need at least 3 on that. Then the things that like particularly organizations like CalSTRS would benefit from are what I point out as C and D option. One is building collective board fluency. The essential part here is you want multiple people on the board to have some idea about what are the right questions to ask about AI, what are the risks with AI. And you persistently ask those questions. set up the boundaries within which AI needs to be tested out before it is actually going and implemented in the real world. And for that, it requires to have more sessions like this kind of a session we are having, and bringing these multiple training rounds for the board members. And this is what many companies are essentially doing. Even S&P 500 companies are essentially doing the same thing. They're building that common board fluency out there. Then the option D that I talk about is this is as the boards are building their more AI fluency themselves, they will always need some sort of help from external expertise as well. Boards can always bring in external experts, which could be AI expert from outside, could be a consultant, could be a technologist from outside, could be professors from outside who know how the technology works. That is also another common thing that is happening quite widely. The key part when you bring in external expert is that if you bring in external expert and you don't build your board fluency, then kind of it's going to be challenging. Then you are kind of giving the responsibility to the external expert. But as a board, the responsibility essentially lies with you. You can get as much advice as you want from the external expert, but the responsibility is essentially yours. So that's an important part when you think about bringing in experts. You should use them as sources of information. They can help provide a more independent viewpoint compared to the management, but the decision is going to be yours there. Now, the one question that always comes up when I go and ask and present something like this, the board starts immediately with, what is the level of AI fluency do we actually need? And my answer is typically this: it is less than what you fear, but it's more than what you think. Right? Yeah. The one thing that you really need to see is, first thing you will need to figure out where AI is actually material. AI is going to be used across the organization in many different ways, and many things it may not even really matter. Like if somebody is using it to kind of draft their email, it doesn't really matter. But let's say AI starts being used in terms of disbursing of benefits, then suddenly it matters a lot more, right? So you need to have an idea of where AI is actually going to affect a decision that is important. If it is not a decision that is important, it really is not something that you should be investing too much effort on. So you should be looking at whether it's going to affect people or your members in certain way, whether it affects their long-term returns in certain way. Does it introduce certain amount of risk for the company out there? And does it change decision rights in a way that somehow the decision is made by AI and not by a particular person? If that happens, then it's going to be a problem down the line, right? So the one thing that the boards, typically what I'm observing boards are doing is they are actually asking that don't implement AI where AI is going to be material directly in your major part of the organization, where it will affect your main jobs, which could be, in your case, could be dealing with your investments or working with your members and so on. That's not where you directly implement. Put sandboxes out there. Within the sandbox, first prove that this thing works. Right? Try to kind of convince the board on that we have tested it sufficiently and it does not have those kind of the common issues that we can observe at this time. So that kind of sandboxes so that you can bound the risk within which it is. It should be fully tested before you go and implement it. And so many of us have heard with LLMs hallucinations. It can hallucinate anything. If you are deciding benefits for members and it hallucinates some part, it can actually create a problem. So an example I will give you is in UK post office, there was a big scandal that happened a few years ago. This is what happened in this. So they put in an AI system, and this particular system, what it was doing is it was figuring out how much specific local post or sub post office in charges their balances were for particular post office. And they found that this AI system started figuring out that there are some discrepancies. They started writing letters to this. There are discrepancies. You figure out, you fix it. And all these sub postmasters, they were actually standing back. No, we have checked. There is no discrepancies. But the company, actually, the UK postmaster, the main office, they actually they believed their AI system. They filed lawsuits. Some people were jailed based on this. And few years down the line, they realized no, AI was wrong. Right? So it's very important not to depend on AI, that you put that human control on that there is this one person. When this thing came up, that these guys are saying something is wrong, there should have been a human accountable for that to look into those things. And so as a board, one of the roles of the board right now is, in terms of accountability, making a human accountable for the outcomes. Right? AI can be used, but human should be the one who should be deciding eventually who is going to be responsible for that. Okay. So here is a number that I share, because this comes up all the time. If you go and look at any kind of newspaper nowadays, they are all talking about how AI is failing, how companies are not making money with AI. And in fact, this number, as multiple different studies have shown, there was a study by BCG and MIT which looked at thousands of firms, and they came up with this number that 90 to 95% of enterprise AI pilots never scale. This is, they fail. McKinsey recently did similar study, again 95%, and many others have done studies. Then most of the AI pilots are failing. Right? And that is a question that is coming back again and again at board level too. When they say, okay, these AI pilots fail, what is the evidence that your AI pilot is succeeding? They typically ask the management. And I bring out this statistic because this is a bit of a misleading statistic, and it's really a governance issue. That's why I bring out this kind of a statistic out there. Right? So what really happens is that when people see this particular statistic, they believe that somehow the technology is not ready. It is the technology or AI that has failed. Right? So if you look at, like, I myself work a lot in AI, and one of the things that we are finding is actually the technology is fairly advanced right now. Technology is not failing anymore. What really this evidence, that number 90-95% is telling us, the pilots usually work. Failure is happening during scale and integration. What does that mean? Let's say you come up with some sort of a AI model that is going to figure out and bring some sort of, like, that tells you, brings a report related to risks, which could be related to the investments made or how members are interacting with the firm. It brings those kind of risk scores out there for you. And you find that is actually bringing this information faster compared to how you were getting that information before. So in terms of pure pilot, that has succeeded. But now you have to decide how decisions would be made based on this. Are we going to act differently now based on this? Like, are we going to interact with members now differently? Are we going to change some processes internally? That aspect is what is actually typically not done. And that's where the failure actually happens, that it never gets integrated in the system. Right? I was actually talking to Michael some time back, and one of the examples that when I talk to companies on this is, when you think about AI, AI is a general purpose technology. So what I mean by general purpose technology, this is a technology which is going to have a broad impact, both in terms of cutting cost as well as changing your organization. Like electricity was one of those. Internet was another of those. And now you have AI out there, right? So the example that you guys would have all heard of this, when electricity came up, before electric motors were there, how industry used to work or factories would work. You will have this big factory floor and big steam engine in one corner of the farm, which is going to provide all the all the power. And the steam engine will have pulleys coming out, and the whole factory was designed to work with this particular steam engine, right? And if the steam engine went down, the whole factory went down. And it would move at a particular same pace all the time. Electric motors came up. What did most organizations do? Take out this take out the steam engine out and put a big electric motor in place of that. And for 15, 20 years, everyone talked about there is no productivity benefit. We are not getting value. Yeah, it's less noisy, less maintenance, but we are not getting benefits. It took them some 20 years to figure out, no, we could have built these smaller electric motors and put drills in people's hands and completely reorganize the factory floor. That's where assembly lines came up and major productivity in Ford and all that showed up. Right? Similarly, when internet came up, if you guys recall, very early days of internet, we had we used to have before that there would be these retailers who will mail you these catalogs, and then you will call which product you wanted to purchase, right? And when internet came up, what everybody did, let's create a website, put my catalog out there, right? And they found that, okay, so this is another way to make money, and many of them did not succeed. Then came Amazon. What Amazon did was very different. He said, here is some new technology that has come up. I'm not going to be a traditional retailer. What does this technology allow me to do which I could not do before? And there are a number of things. It says, one is I could have as many products as I want. I'm not restricted by my warehouse per se out there. It says I could actually recommend things to people, right? Which you could not do that kind of recommendation in a store. I could get reviews for any kind of a product out there. I could even price differently for this. So they built a new type of a store which actually took advantage of this internet. And that's where they went into the technology side of things. Same thing is going to happen with AI. There will be a lot of restructuring of organizations that will happen around what is possible with AI. Right now, all of us, like all the technology that we see, or how the work is structured, is the way how all of us work as people. Right? So, and what we are all trying to do is, or organizations are trying to do, they're saying a person does a job A, let's turn some part of the job and automate it. Right? That is not going to give a lot of benefits down the line. It will have to be completely radically rethought out. And that will take time. But those are the things that many companies are starting to now think about. Right? The other question that sometimes I get all the time is, with automation, are we going to see that there will be no jobs? Right? I think in the short run, it looks tough on the job market as we see like how the jobs are getting affected. But down the line, we may see new kinds of jobs that will emerge. Many of the jobs that emerged after internet came, we could not have imagined that before internet. There were no cloud computers, software developers were very limited, web designers, all that was not there. But now more jobs will come related to governance or accountability when you work with agents and so on. Right? So why this whole, what I mentioned about all these pilots and so on really matter for the boards? So one part is that these failures are really organizational and they are not technical failures. So when you see pilots are failing, the question you should be asking is where it actually failed. Right? And if it is organizational, that's the question you should be asking. Okay, this pilot type. We see you have shown us these metrics that this system somehow works, but how is it embedded within the organization? That's the question you should be asking. Like, how do we make better decisions with this? Not that just that this AI works. Tell me what better decision do we make? Right? The other part that is really important in this case, which I'm hearing a lot from management and the board, is there is always premature ROI pressure. With AI, every time investment is there, it is a significant investment. Then the boards typically ask for what is the return on this investment. And that comes out too soon. They are asking for returns too quickly. AI investments are going to take at least 4 or 5 years or so before you will see some returns on your bottom line. However, you should be looking for completely different kind of metrics in this case. You should be looking at, are we making better decisions? Are we actually seeing risk scores or risk scenarios compared to faster compared to others? Are our customers getting more satisfied compared to the past? Those are the kind of things that you should be measuring in the intermediary before you will start seeing some sort of an ROI returns. Right? If you look at any of the reports coming from industry, every company is saying they're not getting ROI returns at this time because it takes time to get those returns out there. Right? So the board's responsibility really is to change how investments from AI initiatives are going to be evaluated and paced. So you need to think case by case, and we'll get into some of those things. What is the right metric to look at that we know that this is actually working, that this is adding value? And there is no one size fit all. We'll get into few examples of those as well. Okay. So why value creation from AI actually looks different? Right. So one is traditional ROI, the way we measure this is not going to be sufficient. Think about you invested, you put together some AI solution out there, even in, let's say, in the investment of your fund, you decide somewhere AI is being used to get insights from let's say, analyst reports and so on. That part works, but some of that needs to be embedded into decision making, that somebody is using that information to make decisions now. It may take some time before you will start getting some returns. Right? So typical value is going to be materialized over 2 to 4 years. And I would say more towards the 4-year horizon rather than the 2-year horizon. So if you, as a board, put pressure, ROI pressure, you may end up mislabeling AI efforts as failure when they are actually not failures. Right? And when I advise organizations, I typically say that for an organization like CalSTRS, the worst part is not that some of the AI dollars don't provide returns. The worst part would be where AI pilots, which could have actually added a lot of value down the line, if you shut it down because you are not seeing ROI returns immediately. Right? So that's an important part to keep in mind. So not thinking about AI in isolation, think about what would be the decision that you will make that would be better in the long run. That's the part. I think AI, you would be fine by thinking just AI as a black box and focusing more on the what decision I could do better. So that's one way to think about it. And this happens because AI value will depend on, you need to integrate across the organization. People need to adopt it. There is some decent amount of learning. As you guys are learning about AI, so is a lot of the staff of the organization as well. And they need to feel comfortable as they work with AI. Right? So those things would be important. So think about non-financial outcomes first. Think about, are you getting better decisions? Are you getting lower risk compared to before? Are you feeling ready to take on some of the new things that are coming out there? Do you feel that if challenges come, your staff is now better prepared compared to before to handle it? So those kind of things would be the things that you should think about. So what is the board's role in AI governance? Right. So this is something, and this can get actually quite tricky depending on what the board is. But the decision, that the role is very clearly separated, but sometimes the board and the management are not able to separate it out as well. I don't see that problem here though. I say the real part of the board is the real part when you deal with AI. The executive or the management role is like they are going to decide how AI is going to be built, which models to use, whether to buy it from somewhere, how to deploy it, how to operate it, what data to use and so on. That is completely the management's role. That is not where the board should be really getting into. Right? Board's role is to decide under what authority and risk. What does that mean? You're going to decide what is the long-term strategy for this organization. Does this AI investment actually help you move in that direction, or is it completely something independent of that? If you find it's independent, not aligned with the strategic direction of the firm, you could choose not to allow for that kind of investment. right? You need to decide what should be the risk governance mechanism for you. Who is on the board going to be responsible? Is it a committee or the whole board, which is actually going to ensure that certain risk, that you are bounding the risk by certain amount? And how does the management bounds that risk? Like you could say, we don't want anything to be implemented on real data. We want you to test it out in sandbox environment first. That is something that the board can do. Board can also go and set we are not going to allow any system which can override humans. We want a system where humans can override AI and provide that who is that person who is responsible. The essential way I would say the board should be the one who should be saying, whenever management comes and says, this is the AI implementation we are doing, you should be less interested in AI. You should be more interested in the person who is responsible, who is going to be ultimately responsible, and asking that person that is going to be that person accountable for the outcomes. So that's the key part that board's responsibility comes to. So essentially, when you think about AI, the quote that I always give is noses in, fingers out. You're smelling where it could go bad, and you're making sure it doesn't go bad, and somebody is responsible for it. And then it's their job to make sure it doesn't go bad, right? Rather than telling how to fix it. That is the role of the management out there. Okay. So when we think about board's responsibilities for AI oversight, so this at a very high level, they fall into essentially three big buckets out there. One is strategic alignment. As I said, as a board, you guys decide what is the organization's long-term strategy. Right? And sometimes I hear this people start talking about there is a organization strategy and there is also a AI strategy. Okay, that's in my mind is a completely wrong terminology to use. There should be no AI strategy per se. The only strategy you should care about is organizational strategy, and AI is essentially then a tool to help you achieve that organizational strategy. If you have AI strategy which is completely different from that, then you are not going towards, you are not progressing your own organization strategy. Then you are probably getting into more like a tech firm kind of a setup. So which is probably not the goal, right? And when you think about strategic alignment, companies have to decide that they are going to invest in AI to do two things. One is what work you are doing, making it more operationally efficient somehow using AI. The second is something that could actually transform the investments, transformative investments, which means this could be something that could actually prepare the organization better for the future. The way you do the work could completely change, right? So a real kind of way you should be thinking about either a 70-30 or 80-20 split. Means 80% of the effort or AI investments are in more towards making you more operationally efficient, and 20% going towards more transformative investments. That's what you should be thinking about as you are investing in this. Then the second part is value framing. Means the value should not be pure short-term ROI driven value. You should be looking at multi-year horizon for the AI value and talking about what are these KPIs that you should be looking at, whether it's to better decisions, lower risk, greater customer satisfaction. Case by case, you pick that up, that this is what we are going to measure. And as a board, you should be assigning clear ownership. Now, there is going to be ownership on the management side, but on the board side also, you need to decide. On the board, who is responsible? Is the whole board a small committee? And what are they responsible for? So that part as a board, you will need to provide. With that, what I will do is I'll provide you a framework as you go on and you interact with the management, and management is coming up with this, here is an AI investment that we want to make. So how should actually you approach it? If you are part of that committee or as a board, what questions you should be asking, right? This is a very practical governance framework. If you just follow this in terms of AI oversight, this will actually get you the answers that you need to know. Yep. And this is not in technical terms, if you say. Okay? The first is in terms of value. Any time an AI investment is pitched to you guys, the question you should be asking, how would we know that this is working over time? Okay? You should have clarity on that. You should be able to measure that. And you should then hold the management accountable for providing that metrics to you on a regular basis. Then the second is accountability. In the management, who is going to be accountable for this outcome? When I say about, I'm not saying about this AI initiative, I'm saying about the outcomes. If the outcomes don't align with what you want, or you start seeing some issues are there, who is it that is going to fix those issues? And who is responsible for that? Right? So that person should be like very clearly laid out that this is the person who is responsible for this. Right? So we sometimes talk about human in the loop. This is actually human on top of the loop, essentially, is what you want. Right? This is the person who will see when things go wrong. Right? Yeah, not a bot. You certainly don't want bots to do things. Right? Then the third part as a board, which increasingly is becoming important, is defensibility. Whenever something, all these high profile AI cases which have gone around, eventually it comes to the board, where board is asked, why was this decision made? Right? What did you understand? Did you ask these questions? So the question that you should be asking is not about that this is a very complex, Google has come up with this kind of a model out there and we trust it. You should be asking, can you explain how this model works in very simple language to me? How decisions are being made? Right? And that's what the question you should be asking. And when you are kind of, for every question, this is what you should be doing. Right? And boards are being asked increasingly about these kind of things. That did you know? So there is a famous case with Zillow. I think you guys may know of Zillow.com, where if you own homes, you may look at Zestimate prices sometimes, right? So this is a company which created this thing called Zestimate, which tells what should be the kind of expected selling price of your home, right? And what this company started doing was they said, we will use this. We are so good at predicting selling prices. We are going to buy and sell homes on our own. Okay, so they built a model and they started buying and selling homes on their own, called the iBuyer program. Made huge amount of losses. Right? And what happened in that particular, eventually it came to the board. Did the board approve it? And essentially the board had approved this. Board said, yes, seems like a good idea because this was tried out in closed environment, and within that environment it worked. But anybody who works in the financial space would know, like, markets also actually kind of drift over time. This model worked very well on the past data. In the market, when the market actually drifted out there, the model started like buying homes at higher prices and selling at lower prices. Right? And the board was asked, did you actually had discussions related to the risk? How could this system fail at scale? Particularly, that's a big question you should be asking about any AI investment. How is it going to fail? Under what conditions would it fail? And how are we going to know about it? And would we know about it after it fails, or we are going to know about it early enough? Right? That's the question you should be asking with every AI investment, and they should be able to explain it to you in layman terms. That's an important part, again, these four things. So let's look at one example here, right? So let's say here is a scenario comes up related to AI in investment risk analysis. The scenario is like you have this effort where you have used AI to synthesize portfolio data, manager reports, and macro signals to support long-term investment risk monitoring. The idea is that somehow you're taking all this data that you have and you want to create a report which tells that you have some investment risk out there and that what you are exposed to. So it will prepare that kind of a report for you, which now your investment managers or other can look at it and make some decisions based on it. Right? For the value question, you should be asking is, what improves in risk insights or timeliness, right? So what kind of risk insights are we going to capture now more compared to before? Are we going to get it faster compared to before? And then you should be asking that the board, the management to show you that that is what is happening, right? What leading indicators will the board see? How would we know that actually this is working? Are we actually seeing these risk insights before others? So if you have a finance committee, that would be able to know what risk insights are coming out of that, right? So that's less of an AI question, more of a finance question out there. Then accountability. Who is accountable for AI supported risk insights? So is it just that we put a system out there and replace the person who was coming up with this job? Or now there is a person still responsible for this, right? If there is an issue, if there is a person and this person actually thinks a report is missing certain thing, right? Or they do not agree with the report. How are these issues going to be escalated or overridden? So that part is an important part, right? So some of the main challenges that are happening now is like there are inbuilt systems that companies put out there that okay, human can override, but they're so complex that real overriding cannot happen. You have to stick with the system. So you should be asking, this should be like, how would this be escalated higher up in the organization, right? Then defensibility, can outputs and limitations be explained externally? Okay, this is where like essentially the boards have to be very clear about. When you see these outputs and limitations, can you tell it to someone like who doesn't know much about AI that this is what we were doing? If you can't explain it, then it becomes quite challenging, right? And are we maintaining some auditable record of use, like how this is generating and how we are using it? And then the other part, as I mentioned earlier about this risk, there are many risks with AI, and I have a separate slide on that to get into what are the key risks. When AI fails massively. It does not fail in a small way. It fails in a big way and has huge impacts. And it fails slowly. There's the part. You may not see it failing because it will be so slow transition, but it could bring a lot of failures in that. For example, when this any kind of the major failures that we talk about is what we call model or data drift. Essentially means all that AI does, essentially, despite whatever every company claims nowadays, tech firms claiming on this, AI is looking at past data and it looks at these past patterns in that data. And it is able to tell you what happens in the future if the past patterns are exactly going to be replicated in future. It can learn very complex patterns. Anytime the future may have slightly different pattern, that AI is not going to do very well there. Okay? So that's the part. Now, when a new thing happens, it happens slowly, and AI model will start failing slowly, but you should be actually telling the management, show us these early warning signs, that you measure them all the time, that there is no such drift happening over time. Or when there is bias that emerges over time, how are we measuring it? So those kind of things you should be asking. Here is another example, like if you use AI to handle routine member inquiries and document processing to improve response times and service consistency. Essentially, you want to have better member interactions out there, that you want to respond to their requests faster and have better service with them, right? On its own, it looks like a small kind of an AI investment, but even it can actually fail in fail in a very public way out there, right? So in terms of value, you should be checking like this. If you see, I'm not saying anything related to AI out there. I'm saying the value comes from, are the response times and resolution rates improving? Do our customers get responses to their queries faster than before? Right? Are their satisfaction improving? Because AI's role is to help you do that. That AI is not setting new goals for you. Right? It is helping you to improve on your goals. Right? Who is going to be accountable for member service quality? Right? If there are errors and sensitive cases, how are they escalated to humans? And when they are escalated, who actually handles it and how these things are handled, right? Can we explain and defend this? Can we, if there is a decision and responses, can we explain it to members? And so there was this very famous case of Apple credit card that they came up with, right? So the famous case was they used a bank to come up with this AI model that will decide who will receive this, what would be the credit limit. And it turned out that it was biased against women. Okay, and there was very, very high profile cases. Some of the CEOs were given very little credit limit because they were women, right? So that was a very public case that came out. And they could not explain exactly why this happened, right? So in the financial space, that's why it becomes very important. They were not using gender at all to decide who gets this or not, but it was still turned out to be biased. So those questions come up. So you should be actually checking out those kind of things, particularly member facing things. Does it lead to some sort of a bias down the line? Even when you are not positioning it, you are not using any gender information, age information, and so on, right? So those can have huge reputational risks based on that. And there are more high profile cases are more like those. Okay, so what are the AI risks boards must oversee? I won't get into cyber security. I'm pretty sure you will have a cyber security team which is looking into cyber security. But AI risks, they are kind of in four different buckets you can think of, like how the AI risks are. The biggest risk, the more high profile risks that we hear are related to people and fairness. Yeah? This bias and disparate impact. What we know for sure, AI will actually help you make decisions which are going to be better than before. It may actually reduce your costs, kind of thing, and it may also help you make better decisions. But the definition of better is very different for AI. Let me give one example what it does. So Facebook came up with this whole idea that it wanted to advertise. When you advertise, like if you are selling some educational product, you go to Facebook and you say, I want to show ads to people. Okay? If you use Facebook's AI algorithm to decide who gets to see the ad, it will outperform whatever you can get on your own. You will get better returns on this as a company based on that. But what you will find is that it is going to show advertisement to specific demographics compared to others. On its own, it decides that demographic is somehow more profitable. Let's just go towards that. Right? So those kind of things you may have to be very careful about, particularly when you're dealing with members. Then you want to see, can it lead to some sort of a systematic bias there? And you may not know that upfront because you will see there is no gender information being used, location information, still it may lead to some biases out there. So that is something you should be asking the board. Let's look at where is the bias out there. And if there is a bias, how do we override it? Okay? There are cases where the human override was not even allowed in the system. So those can be very problematic. That is super important to have. The other kind of risk is related to system and performance, which relates to model performance and reliability. Any model that you are going to build in AI, that is going to work only for a short period of time, because the next set of patterns are going to change. Yeah? In the short period of time, it may look very good. We have seen financial crises happening in the past, right? When they were working with these models used to work very well. Before the crisis, the second a crisis hit, that model is not going to work as well. Okay? So you need to know this is model drift or data drift is very important. So you should be, just because your model works very well for the last 3 months, does not mean it will work as well for the next 3 months. Right? So you should be asking, let's have measures on how we are measuring that risk out there. And your management and the people who are building those models, they should be able to provide that kind of information to you. The other part is data quality. You need to make sure that you have the right data to build these models. It's like, there's a famous saying, garbage in, garbage out. If you don't have good data and you build sophisticated models, it doesn't mean much. You need to have good data and making sure as an organization, if they are thinking about building AI or using AI in future, that they have this background data that they can use very well over time. The third kind of risk is related to institutions and compliance. So this is where like regulatory and fiduciary compliance that is really important. The boards are actually responsible to ensure that the models that are being used, they are not, they may be black box to the board, but they should be, the people who are building the models should be able to explain how decisions are being made. You should be able to ask them specific examples that you understand. Okay, let's say case A versus case B. What does your model do in these things? That's what you should be requesting the board, requesting your management to provide those. And auditability is many times what we are realizing is that once AI is implemented, after that, information is not stored. Like how AI is making the decision, under what conditions it made. And when it comes to auditing later on, that information is not there. Did the human actually approve everything or not? You want a human approval on this. And sometimes one of the key things that happens is you put a human in charge for AI, they become so reliant on AI. First month, they will check AI is doing fine. After that, they just believe AI is doing fine. But that's when the problem comes. Right? So making sure that that is not a issue out there. That becomes quite important. Right? Then there is a bigger issue that is emerging, particularly with AI, is related to ecosystem and reputation, particularly the ecosystem part. As you build AI, you're going to largely depend on few companies out there. Right? So you use either models from a Google, from an OpenAI, or Claude or something like those. That's what you are going to do. And those models everybody is going to use. Okay? That means those models are also bringing a huge amount of risk for you. If there are hackers out there, they know that they need to crack one of these models out there, right? And they can have a huge impact. So you should be careful about what is this concentration risk out there when you are concentrating on one particular player out there, right? So those kind of things are the big risks you should be asking about. Now, it does not mean that you go and say, let me go work with 10 different companies now. That is going to be very counterproductive. You work with one company, but now you need to ensure you have serious cybersecurity built around these. And that's your cybersecurity committee should be asking for this. How do we prevent that? They are also at the top to think about these things. So please feel free to ask any questions if you have any questions. Yes.
Second, I forgot.
That's okay. I think I'm in, Denise.
Oh,
if I
that's the
may.
wrong one. Are you on?
Am I the first?
You're
Yep,
on.
I'm
Go
on.
for it.
I guess it relates to your comment, and I think it's around governance. And I know in the private sector, there are boards that have literally like either a tech committee or, and so I'm just wondering, I know we have some folks that are doing a deeper dive on tech on our board, but we're a public board. And I just wonder if you can comment a little bit about how we might best provide that oversight as a board, and maybe different models that you've seen that work.
Yeah, this is a great question. Actually, every public board is facing the same issue currently. So the two things that need to happen. One is you will need to form a committee for sure. And without a committee, it becomes very diffuse. The responsibility becomes very diffuse. You need at least a small committee that is focused on providing AI governance. This is the first part on this. Then to get them more AI fluent means when certain kind of things that the company is trying to do, they need to now think through what would be the right questions to ask, what decisions would be impacted out of that. And that's where you should also kind of bring in your AI experts from outside as well to provide support to them. You should lean on them, even though you should retain all the responsibility, but lean on them for information. So you should not, the way I would say is, if you just depend on the outside experts know a lot more about AI. They do not know as much about your organization.
I think one of the conundrums is, I would say, on this board, I'll just speak for this board member, I think we're pretty good at asking questions.
Yep.
And creating a record around, decision-making. I don't know about other folks, but in terms of AI experience, I use Perplexity all the time.
Yep.
But I guess I just wonder what it looks like to really have our hands around this issue when, we're more in a place of asking questions and providing big picture oversight versus in the weeds with technology and AI. So I think that's maybe some of the rub I feel as you're talking.
No, this is great. Actually, you guys are doing your job very well. Then it's really at a higher level. You should be asking questions. The board, the management should be providing you responses to satisfy your concerns at the high level part. So it's the board job is not to get fingers deep into how these models work, how deep it is. You should be always thinking from the member level risk, their returns, how is this going to affect that? Whether the treatment could be different of this. And you should be asking them to convince you the way they are doing is actually not going to negatively affect that. That actually is management's job to come to your level to convince you that. And you should always say, eventually you guys don't depend on the AI. Management can use AI. Your job is to get sure that there is a person in charge and you think that person is responsible for AI if anything goes wrong in that. So you can put onus on them on that side. So this is an important part. Most boards, even in like the S&P 500 boards, most of the board members are not going to be very deep in the technology per se. So that's one of the issues that comes up with any technology. As we talk about, we sometimes think deep understanding of technology is needed, whereas in reality, your business is like supporting your members, investing them, and giving them benefits, right? So that's what your focus should be. How does this technology help me do that? By not introducing risk, by improving our decisions, and by making sure treatment is not somehow disparate out there.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Queued up here. Let's see. Yeah, this one. Yeah.
AI is messing with you double click on it, or?
Patrick, you are next, but I don't, there you go.
He's on.
I am green, which is good for St. Patrick's Day coming up here. I definitely did have a couple of questions. You answered a lot of it, Doctor, in your last response, which is my biggest concern about the AI usage within, even a board like this is really that defensibility, that accountability, because of exactly the types of biases that you brought up that somehow are creeping into that. And when we're talking about making investments and we're starting to look into using AI for those types of decisions, I worry about the AI deciding which indexes are better than other indexes that may include some implicit bias that we haven't pre-programmed to not. It's just a lot, and so any more best practices you can impart on us would be appreciated.
So particularly when you think about biases, this is one of the challenging parts with biases. So a lot of my own research was on this. Biases come in many different ways of this. One of the key things biases come up is that somehow in the underlying, when you're deciding which indexes to invest in, some indexes perform better because of something that you don't actually want. Right, so they let's say they're focusing on companies which exploit the environment, let's say, Right? So that's why they are doing better. They are not, they're taking on those opportunities which could be in the short-term money making. Right? And when this kind of decisions happen, when AI is deciding and you realize there is a bias, you are not going to realize it upfront. You realize it once you are starting to invest, that's when you should be checking about these biases on this, what things matter to you. So the first part with biases is what you guys need to decide about is what are the key things that matter to you. Are you, let's say, are you, do you want to invest in firms which are more diverse workforce, right? Let's say that is something that matters to you, or you want to invest in firms which are more socially responsible, right? Once you have those things cleaned out first, that you want to invest in these kind of, these are your values that matter to you, then you should be mapping up the AI outcomes related to that. Does it hurt, does it kind of violate those principles for you? So you're never going to be able to test it out for everything. So you need to come up with your list of principles that matter to you. And then you can match it, whether AI investments are bad. And as long as you are doing that, you'll have, you're keeping it fairly accountable for those kind of principles. And if new principles come up, then go test it out as well. But these things are tested out once you have implemented AI. And many of these things emerge a bit later down the lane, when like these things are seen, like as the healthcare example I talked about, that emerged only down the lane when we say, okay, this is the unintended consequence of AI that is happening.
I also worry about the human factor of the over-reliance on AI
Yes.
coming through. It's like, oh, I programmed the computer, it's supposed to do this, and it did something slightly different.
Yep. So this is a big question that we are seeing. In the beginning, this is all the research that is coming. In the beginning, the person typically does not trust the computer or the AI outcome. They will try to override it. Then they will say, no, AI is actually doing better than them at least. Then they start relying too much on AI itself. So there are many studies which are coming up and they're showing that, I think the current generation that is coming out in high schools, they are actually testing lower than their parents.
Yep.
Right? Because there is too much reliance on AI.
Say that again.
So the current generation that is coming out of kids, they are actually testing worse than their parents on many of the metrics because of over-reliance on AI. Right? And there are widespread studies which are showing up as you rely more on AI, you lose your common sense, you can say, or your judgment ability itself too. So you need to make sure that that kind of over-reliance doesn't happen. So that part is very important on that. And that over-reliance is, I'll get into that in a slide or two, that over-reliance is also going to be more problematic down the line because you may not have people with the expertise to do those things which AI would do for you, right? Where judgment is built. So those things can create big problems.
And I have one I hate to do this too, but switching sort of sides, looking at things from an investment standpoint. Your 95% number, I think, got a lot of the board members, including myself, eyes wide open. California represents 60% of all companies that are AI-based, and then the S&P 500 has about a 30% investment there. In your best estimate, are we looking at that the AI will take a natural sort of progression, much like other technologies have through markets, or is this something special?
It will take very similar, but it will take faster. Remember, there's every general purpose technology, as we are seeing, the timeline is shrinking within which it actually has the impact out there. Like, now I don't want to be let me share anyway. So with every technology, what we have seen that out there, there is so much investment upfront that almost a bubble is formed. Then a shakeup happens. Similar shakeup would happen with AI as well. There's so much investment that is happening right now. It will happen, but really great companies will also come out of this. Many companies will do great out of that as well. So the idea for every company is to be not to be buy.com, but be Amazon.com out there. So that's what the challenge is. So that's what it requires a lot of.
So we
Thinking
should
of-
start looking at quantum right now.
Quantum is completely another thing. Quantum is actually way early compared to AI at this time, right? But those things are important. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Dr. Singh, I think many of us have felt very defensive about AI. I think the way it's been framed in the media and such is that there's like an urgency to it, like it's coming, it's happening now. But I really appreciate your presentation because it almost feels like a more measured approach is necessary. And my question for you is, what is the urgency as a governance structure? How quickly should we be moving?
So this is a great question. It depends. It depends really on what is your business strategy out there. What is the strategy of the organization overall? AI is essentially a tool which is going to help you achieve that. So are you finding that there are gaps in terms of what you want to do as an organization? That should determine whether you should be moving faster or sooner. Are your kind of, let's say, the profit margins shrinking somehow because others have moved on? Right? So that could change based on this. Are you not able to invest better compared to others? So do you see a lot of opportunity there? That should determine whether how fast you should be moving. But these the technology has moved faster than compared to the value that organizations have been able to figure out from this. Technology is moving very fast in terms of its capability. Organizations are, as with every technology, they are far behind currently. So there is, it depends on the strategy of the organization, not the AI strategy.
And so if I could just follow up then, kind of switching gears to thinking proactively.
Yeah.
What kind of structures, from a governance standpoint, should we be putting in place or thinking about? For example, I know that early on in your presentation, you talked about how if we implement a model today, 3 to 4 months, 6 months from now, that model could be drifting, right? And I know that in tech, they use things like red teaming
Yes.
to identify when models are going off the rails. And
Yes.
so how should governance structures like boards
Yep.
be incorporating systems like that so that we are empowering staff and executives to develop those structures, and then we're getting the feedback on those structures?
This is excellent question. This actually goes to the heart of how AI, particularly in the financial services kind of a company, you should be looking with AI, working with AI. Anytime AI you are going to implement, put it in a sandbox and do red teaming against it. With red teaming, you want to figure out what are the boundaries of this AI. One of the big issues with large language models particularly is out there. We cannot bound the risk easily in standard ways. So throughout every company, every bank even is doing the same thing. They are saying, let's put a sandbox within which we will allow AI to work first, and let's do full-scale red teaming. So before it touches anything for you in terms of investment side of the business, certainly you should red team. I would say even when you deal with members, you should be red teaming even there as well. That will start giving you some idea of where the risks are going to be and how comfortable you are with those risks. So red teaming is actually certainly, if the organization is not doing, that's something it should certainly do.
If I could just push a little bit more on that, if you're red teaming, it's usually you're using past data, past performance. How do you do that moving forward, though?
Yep.
Like, do you almost have to continuously red team as you're sandboxing? That's the difficulty, is
Yes.
that we're looking back, but we also need our teams to be operating forward.
Yes, so this is again great question. So red teaming is done 2-3 different ways. Many times the way some of the organizations, at Carnegie Mellon, we do some red teaming actually, particularly for financial services. There's 2 different ways we are approaching that. Is one is we have hired a bunch of experts to actually break the system. We try to say, let's go ahead and break this system out there. There are companies you can nowadays work with whose whole job is getting these really smart kids, whose whole job is to set up your scenario in the sandbox. They will try to break the system.
Right.
And then we have folks which have built their own intelligent systems which try to break the system as well. Right? So there are now automated solutions also now that you can work with and get, which will actually try to break these systems. That will try to get you some sense of where, what is the risk out there in this. Now, when I said things change in 3 to 6 months, that was a little bit more hyperbole. Sometimes it goes on for a few years before it will shift.
Sure.
Right? So it's not that fast, but it does drift. That's an important part to remember.
Okay, good. Hi.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm really enjoying this, and it's in a format that I'm really able to understand and comprehend. It's really helpful to me, so thank you. One of the things that I always worry about is risk.
Yep.
And a lot of people, it seems like companies don't really talk about the risk. They talk about all the great things that it can do and how it does things. When you talked about using AI to, for instance, help you with a project or something like that, but it's the human person that is the ultimate decision maker to, push the go button, right?
Yep. Yep.
So for agencies like a state agency, basically, we are subject to something called the whatever, it's PRA, all right? And so it wouldn't be the AI product that would be under suspicion or under reputation. It would be actually CalSTRS in this instance that would have to produce those documents.
Yep.
That's right?
Yes.
Okay.
For every company, AI is never under.
Right, so
the lens.
they're an entity that's kind of out there, and then we just pull from that to
Yep.
form our decisions and our documents.
Yes.
Correct?
Yes,
Okay,
that's how you should think of.
that's what I was afraid of. Okay. Okay, and then another different question is, I am so naive when it comes to AI, and I'm learning just snippets of things here and there. And you talked about the sandbox, you talked about this and that. Is there a dictionary that has these words and the definitions? And is that dictionary coordinated with the investment terms that we may use in that form?
So let me say that the way you think about dictionaries, that there would no be standard dictionary, but this is what I would suggest. So do you use any of the LLMs like a Gemini or Perplexity or
Perplexity, yeah.
or Gemini or something? If you
Right.
use one of these, you can go and ask it all these questions. It will actually do a fairly
Well,
good
I
job.
did, but they give me all these long answers,
Okay.
I just want a little
Ask for a
Out-
short answer.
outline like you have right here. I mean,
Yes.
you have a word and then you have a description.
Yeah.
That's all I want to know. Is there something that's been produced, or is it something that I have to request through these AI forms?
She has an answer for you.
Oh, boy. Yes. Yes, okay.
can provide when we will do the recommendation, the technology committee, I think we can provide, just like we did in the pension solution in the back.
Yes.
I think the LLM, I know most of the, you're just figuring it out what is LLM means, like
Yeah.
large language model.
Right.
So I think maybe we can provide that.
Okay, good. Okay, good. Because, you talk about the sandbox, but I have a different interpretation of sandbox, so,
Yes.
so. Yes, we're teachers, so, okay. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ashish, I'm glad you're up there because I just have a note here. Is AI like cybersecurity? So we test the staff, email, we do all that stuff to protect ourselves from outside. Is there a way to think about this on the inside? I mean, like cybersecurity, or am I just off base there? Do you follow my thinking here?
Yeah, I do follow. So it's an interesting way you are thinking. Nobody has pointed out like this, but I can see why. Cybersecurity, we are looking at threats coming from outside and we want to protect. Now here with AI, you can think of it as you are going to use AI. AI itself produces some threats in terms of bias and so on. So you want to have similar sort of
Testing yeah.
on this. Yes, in that way, it's very, 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 very good analogy there.
Should we let
Okay,
him
Harry.
finish?
Were you done?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, Mr. Keeley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Terrific presentation, and I had the good fortune of going through this earlier with the Chair. But I think it really highlights how this affects us from a governance perspective and gives us concrete examples of what we might, should seriously consider that which is actionable for us relative to oversight and the right questions, and whether or not it's board fluent, some sort of board knowledge, common knowledge, with some support from the outside to help us. Super helpful. As it relates to the sandbox, I'm still learning how to play well with everybody in the sandbox as a teacher, right? How well do they play in the sandbox? It's important.
Yeah.
You know, at the stage of my life, am I still playing as I was taught in the sandbox? Whether it's the virtual sandbox or the real sandbox or here at CalSTRS. So something to really think about. How well am I playing in the sandbox? Slippery slope. But my comment is really a request, and I think it goes to Mr. Diamani's question around governance, et cetera. One of the governance decisions that we do make is we approve a budget every year. We go through that process. It's a budget that we approve, that the staff works on. And we went through a pension solution project where I think we learned a lot of lessons. And I think it would be helpful to have an understanding as to what the potential implications are to the budget relative to the dollars that would be needed to hire staff forward-looking that has the skills and the expertise to provide what is needed. So I think that earlier we have some visibility into how the team is thinking about that, I think the better off we would be. Because when you think about what the challenges are relative to finding talent that has the skills and the salaries that they demand, there's a huge mismatch between that and a government agency. So it's a request for information at the appropriate time. How's the team thinking about resources, people, skills, dollars that it will cost, and the impact on the budget? Okay.
I see Julie taking notes. She's on this, Julie.
Okay.
Yeah,
I think
yeah, Julia, yeah.
that exhausts our questions.
Okay.
Do you have anything else to share, I think?
I have a couple more slides. Let me get to those because that is going to affect the workforce questions that you guys must be thinking about as well. Right? Let me
There
get
you
to
go.
this comes out across as a bigger question generally, right? So one is like, what's the impact on the workforce, particularly as you guys start getting into AI? That is going to fundamentally transform the workforce that you will have and the workforce that you will need. One thing that we are already seeing is that AI is getting adopted faster than people are getting trained. Right? So you need to invest in training of your employees as well, not just the board, but even the employees as well. You need to upskill. But even in the major tech firms are figuring out that their employees are not at the right kind of skills at this time with how the AI is changing itself. So that's something. Formal training is something you should think about. The bigger challenge that we are observing, and even as I'm at Carnegie Mellon, even we are seeing with our students who are graduating, within the industry there is these entry-level jobs which would provide training to a lot of these kids as they start in their careers. Those jobs are disappearing. There is almost like about 20% decline in those kind of jobs. Now companies are asking for that some of this work is going to be automated. I want now higher level of judgment, client readiness, and so on from an entry-level employee. Okay? Whereas they would learn that judgment by doing exactly the work which is getting automated by AI. Okay? So that creates a big risk for you. If you automate that part fully, you may not have employees who actually know how to do that work anymore, and the kind of judgment that they have may not match what you will need. So you'll have to think through that. that you have a pipeline out there where people get to do the jobs that are getting automated and develop judgment before they are actually asked to apply judgment out there. So that would be an important component that you should think about. Now, you can come up with the training tied to AI use in general. Broadly, you should provide, have this explicit plan for early career experience. In this organization, as you are going to automate things, make sure there is a plan. This is what like many companies are suddenly found wanting. They let go of complete entry level jobs and automate it. Now they are again trying to figure out ways to think, okay, no, we need some people to do entry level jobs. So you should ask your management to make sure that there is this early career experiences that entry level employees would get, which will help with judgment. Otherwise, as I said, you want a person to be accountable when AI is making decision, but that person needs to have the right knowledge to be able to address that. So that is an important part as a board you should be asking. Okay? I think this is my last slide as what you would see, particularly related to AI governance. What are the big shifts that are going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years? One is right now everybody talks about pilots. Within the next 10 years, that will get embedded into infrastructure. That will become like nobody will say AI as a special committee. That will become everybody would be working with AI. Yeah? So that will become more mainstream. Nobody nowadays talks about websites or internet and so on. Every company has that, right? So what that means is it will start affecting your core decisions. And these decisions would become harder to unwind as it starts embedding this. Remember when you automate anything, the decisions become the same pattern will be done again and again. Right? So that will become harder to unwind. So consequences will persist. So that's an important part that you are ready before you embed it into the infrastructure. The second is right now, any pilots fail, that's a local failure. Once it goes across enterprise, this could become a big systemic failure as well. Right? So think about Teslas are run by software. If that software has a bug, all Teslas are affected. There's the same way it could happen. So it could be, you need to be ready before you get into that enterprise-wide implementation out there. Right? And typically we think about oversight as probably meeting every 6 months, every quarter, and so on. You probably will need, rather than episodic oversight, more continuous governance of this, that there is a continuous reporting of the metrics that you care about that comes out. And the key thing you need to make sure you don't come up with some 1,000 metrics, then you ignore or use AI to understand those metrics. Have few metrics that provide you some value. So I think that's all I have so far.
That's all. Oh my goodness. Does anyone else have questions? I'm sure everybody's going to think about
You
10.
blow up Karen's brain right now.
What?
so
I think it's in here.
Yeah. you have access.
Go ahead, Karen.
Okay, so going back a couple of slides, when you say AI and the workforce implications,
Yes.
when you say what boards should require from management, so does that mean that our board should set up some protocols for all of this to happen, or how? I don't understand what this means.
So what this essentially means is board should be asking the management how are they training the employees to be ready to take advantage of AI.
Okay,
Right, so then the management can provide whether there are any training sort of programs that they have established or not.
okay. And then would any of this be part of the onboarding for employees as well?
Some companies do it for onboarding as well.
Okay,
So it depends on whether the company feels, okay, when we do onboarding, that's when we need to provide training.
okay.
Spoiler alert, this is only the beginning
I
of these
know.
conversations.
No, I know.
We
but-
have, Cassandra's going to talk about more today, and we're going to talk about it next month, and we're going to talk about it in July, and pretty much
Okay,
ongoing.
good. Good. But these are the ones that are coming up, and I really appreciate your presentation, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, seeing no further questions, thank you so much, Dr. Singh. We learned a lot from you.
Thank you so much.
Are there any public comments on item 2?
There are no public comments for item 2.
Okay, how about, did you have something to say?
I think we're scheduled for a break, but we only have 2 more items, so I didn't know if you wanted to take the break or just get through those. They're probably less than 30 minutes.
Let's go through.
Take a break? Okay, I'm seeing, how about 10 minutes instead of 15? We'll take 10 and then finish up.
Do you want to do this for Michael?
We are on item number 3, the Chief Executive Officer Report.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Today, I'm pleased to provide an update on the Technology and AI Governance Working Group that we've been talking about throughout the day, particularly in the last segment with Dr. Singh. Last October, CalSTRS launched this collaborative board staff initiative with a clear purpose to define the board's role in overseeing technology and artificial intelligence at CalSTRS. Rather than focusing on operational matters or evaluating individual AI tools, our attention has been squarely on board-level governance and oversight, ensuring the board's responsibilities remain clearly defined as technology and AI become even more embedded in our enterprise. Our approach over the past several months has centered around a structured listen and learn engagement. We connected with 8 leading public pension peers across the U.S. and internationally, convened discussions with academic experts specializing in AI and board governance, one of which we just heard, and are consulting with advisors who focus on board-level AI governance, legal public policy, and regulatory frameworks. We have a few other discussions that we're going to be finalizing before the May meeting. Through these conversations, we explored how organizations delineate board versus management responsibilities in technology and AI, a lot of which was discussed in the previous item, what governance structures and policies are in use, what level of technology fluency is considered appropriate for boards, and how organizations balance innovation with risk. We also looked at how how enterprise technology and AI spending decisions are made, the role of external advisors, and how AI is influencing financial services and institutional investments. As we wrap up this engagement phase and synthesize our findings, several clear themes have emerged. Across the board, our peers are actively grappling with board-level AI governance, making CalSTRS efforts both timely and relevant. The majority do not form standalone AI committees, particularly in the public pension arena. Instead, technology oversight is integrated into existing governance structures, sometimes with the support of external advisors. Boards are not expected to be technical experts. Rather, their role is to develop a level of fluency that allows them to ask informed questions and provide meaningful strategic oversight. Some organizations have formal board-approved principles guiding AI adoption, and there is widespread agreement that effective governance means anticipating challenges, not just responding to them. Looking ahead to May, we will present a comprehensive report with recommendations in 5 key areas. First, we'll propose a framework to clarify the board's oversight responsibilities for AI across enterprise strategy, member and employer services, investment operations, system impacts and funding risks, risk management and ethics, organizational leadership, and board governance. This framework will help define where board involvement is most important. Second, we'll offer guidance to distinguish board and management roles, specifying which matters require board oversight versus those best managed by staff. This clarity will prevent the board from being pulled into operational technical decisions. Third, we'll outline ways to organize the board's work to effectively fulfill oversight responsibility, leveraging existing governance structures. Fourth, we'll recommend enhancements to board education and onboarding processes to ensure members have sufficient understanding of technology and AI to support effective oversight. This will be important, particularly when board positions might turn over in the next coming years through the election cycles. Finally, we'll suggest external advisory resources that may be used to bolster the board's governance responsibilities when needed. By May, you could expect a clear articulation of the board's oversight responsibilities, a well-organized approach for fulfilling them, and recommendations to support ongoing education and external input. Our aim is to empower the board to govern proactively and confidently as technology and AI continue to evolve within CalSTRS. Following the May meeting, we'll start some of that work going into the July offsite. So again, I think Denise said earlier that this is just the beginning. It's very exciting, and I'm very happy that we're moving ahead in this arena together and in partnership with board members. So thank you for that. Any questions? There are any questions that I have? Okay.
I don't see any.
Okay, perfect. I'm going to have Jeff Zimmer come up in a minute, but before I do that, he's going to be talking about the stabilization of Benefit Connect. I wanted to just report out on some leadership updates in the organization. I'm really pleased to announce 2 leadership changes that will further strengthen the operational functions of the CalSTRS. First, David Lamoureux, our Chief Actuary, sitting right here, you all know him, has joined the executive team beginning March 1st. David's actuarial expertise and experience in forecasting and plan design will bring valuable insights to our executive discussions and support our long-term strategic goals. He will continue to report to Julie Underwood, our Chief Financial Officer, but he will be part of the executive team, and we're really excited that he's going to be joining us. Additionally, we wanted to welcome Kimberly Polito as our new Director of Service Retirement. She took Diane Alsup's position after her recent retirement. Kimberly's 3 decades of pension experience at CalPERS, stole another one from CalPERS, including leading a major program and system replacement project, position her well to oversee service retirement benefits for our 300,000 retired members and support thousands of new retirees annually. So we're really excited that she's bringing her skill sets and past experiences and some of the things that we're working on in CalSTRS into the organization. So that's all I have on my segment, but Jeff is going to come up and talk about Benefit Connect stabilization. Go ahead, take it over, Jeff.
Thank you, Cassandra. Good afternoon, members of the board.
I have no idea.
I feel compelled to at least mention AI, and I'm glad that Dr. Singh broadened the conversation to include member services. With the focus on investments as well. It's very interesting, and that's a whole nother dimension of what we talk about and what we think about when we consider AI, but that's another topic. Today is about Benefit Connect stabilization, as Cassandra mentioned, and since I last spoke to you in January, some things have changed and some remain the same. So what remains the same is that we're experiencing long wait times and high call volumes. January set the all-time record for call volume, and February set the record for February call volume all-time. And so we've seen a change in the call mix away from some of the registration issues that we've been having that we've solved in the system. But those calls remain as people try to register with My CalSTRS and go through our security authorization and verification process. There was also seasonal 1099 calls that we were expected, and then just the normal course of business calls that we get. Employer inquiries still remain high. Satisfaction is still high with staff when our customers reach us and we answer their questions. And there are still backlogs and delays in transactions across business areas. So what's changed is the additional structure and focus that we've added to the investment we're making in improving things. And we're doing this in 2 ways. One is fixing the underlying system obstacles that processes move more quickly and we address backlogs and barriers that our customers and staff face. The second way is to add resources across the organization to ensure we have the capacity to handle these backlogs and higher volumes. So we're creatively assigning easy to learn and easy to train repeatable tasks and call types to internal staff that are less impacted by stabilization. The executive team approved limited term staff to help the areas most impacted, and this includes 9 contact center staff. Thanks to our budget office and human resources and the business area leadership responsible for starting these recruitments and going through with them. The 9 contact center staff have been hired and will start March 17th. And I think from idea to job offer took less than 3 weeks. And that's the fastest that I maybe have ever seen. So I have to give congratulations and acknowledgement to everyone that helped make that happen. Things are moving quickly, and we know we need to move quickly. To govern all of these efforts, Lisa started and leads a cross-functional team that meets regularly to discuss the state of service, how we prioritize fixes for maximum benefit to customers, and to communicate progress and status. So this group includes everyone from ombuds to legal services to communications, information security, HR, and of course, all the business areas that are impacted, and our vendor, Sagitech. This gives us the broadest perspective to ensure we are focused on the right things and we give them the right priority. We've also received delegated authority pursuant to provisions of the Board Governance Manual to explore rapid procurement of goods or tools or services that can increase the speed to stabilization, and we're performing market research on potential options. As mentioned in yesterday's investment committee, when things get complex and risky, it's that much more important to have clear communication across areas on how to address and navigate these situations, and that's what this group is designed to do. Finally, it's fortunate that I'm here with you today, as tomorrow is Employee Appreciation Day, and CalSTRS has made this Employee Appreciation Week about recognizing our employees. So I want to acknowledge all the effort from teams across the organization that are dedicated to providing the best service for our customers. So every benefit we start, every update we make to the Member Assistance Guide, every resolution to a difficult conversation in Member Service Center, every case that we complete that reduces a backlog, every recruitment, every workaround that we retire, every escalation that we handle, and they all get handled, happens because of the skill and resilience of the people that work here and their commitment to providing service. Thank you. And especially under historically challenging circumstances. So this is who we are, and now more than ever, we want to appreciate and thank them. I wanted to give you a little bit more background about what the information that was in Cassandra's CEO report. I hope that helps. And of course, I'm here to answer any questions that you have.
Questions?
I
Chair?
just have a comment because I know some of the challenges that you've been dealing
Sure.
with, and some of us have, heard from members struggling to get through, and so I just want to applaud all the CalSTRS staff who are not in this room right now, but I mean, as a person who sometimes is on the phone with a member trying to navigate it, Mark Jenny, I'm talking to him all the time. So I know what kind of an intensive job that can be, and to be compassionate and patient and clear is a real high level skill. And so I know our CalSTRS staff have that. And I think for our members, it's such a gift to have that kind of response. And so I hear that from our members, and I know people are a little, challenged by not getting through and that, but I know the team is at work on that. But I do think that is the beautiful thing about what we do. We talk about investments a lot, and I think the interactions we have with our members, it's just so significant. And so I just want all the staff, that are in the building and at home to know how much the board really appreciates the attention to the individual. Because that's just it's a huge part of, it's why we're here, right? Is to ensure the secure retirement of our members. So I just want to thank you and all the team behind you. Thanks.
I appreciate that. And yeah, we all appreciate that. Thank you for your observations. And it's remarkable how much that drives what we do. And what we've learned, we've always known this, but we've learned this more, that the members that we serve and their beneficiaries and our customers want to talk to us. They like the experience of calling and talking to us. And when they can't, they're frustrated. Frustrated on one level because it's just, I don't want to be on the phone and wait for that long to talk to you, but I want to talk to you because that conversation and that interaction is very important to them, and it's important to us as well. So when you think about your customer base, you have to think about what behaviors do they expect and what behaviors do they have. And I think you summarize it very well, is that relationship is important and it's direct. So all the more reason to get back to where we were before, but it is heartening to know that we're still committed to that and people have that expectation of us. So that's why we want to get back to where we were. Thank you, Sharon. Okay.
I see no other questions. Thank you very much for the update.
Thank you, Madam
And good
Chair.
luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it is.
Right.
That's great.
Are there any, I'm sorry, Cassandra, was that the end of, okay. Are there any public comments on item 3?
There are no public comments for item 3.
Okay, then we will move to item 4, innovation update.
Yeah, more good news. Here we go. Good afternoon, Chair Bradford, members of the board. I'm here to present the Innovation Program update. As a reminder, this program supports the strategic management goal of leading innovation and managing change. A large part of the program is to solicit ideas from all staff across the organization, regardless of roles or titles. We are happy to report that the Idea Accelerator officially launched January 12th to collect and track ideas for potential exploration by the CalSTRS Innovation Program. The portal lets staff easily share ideas for new products, services, or new ways of working. The portal guides users to submit innovative ideas that align with strategy. We're talking a lot about strategy today. The previous portal was used more like a suggestion box. Branding and messaging around the portal amplifies innovation concepts and provides guidance to help submitters define their ideas. The culture work that we've put in with all staff focused on a number of things, including leveling the playing field. Anybody in the organization can have a great idea at any level. Accelerator makes it easy for all staff to share ideas and have them evaluated. Low-pressure way to encourage creativity and allow staff to contribute their ideas, and can help develop ideas that an individual or business area might not have the ability to pursue on their own. Under psychological safety, we ensure that ideas advance on merit. They're initially reviewed without submitter name or title. Submitters are educated on the evaluation process and what makes a good idea. They get constructive feedback on why and how their idea advances or doesn't. And if an idea advances to development, we use our employee recognition program to recognize the submitter's contributions. Through the portal, we're looking for ideas from these areas where we can have the most impact to evolve the experiences of our members and our people. We prioritize ideas for customer experience, and this includes internal staff, because we have a lot of customers that admin services does the work for, technology services, legal. A lot of us are actually have customers that are internal. Member engagement, employee experience, process efficiency, communication and collaboration, and partnerships with our stakeholder groups or our control agencies, and investing in risk management. This slide shows you how ideas are evaluated. The innovation team evaluates alignment with innovation strategy. In other words, does it fit in one of those opportunity areas that we just discussed? Any idea that involves technology, including generative AI concepts, are forwarded to tech services to be evaluated based on their governance criteria. And I'll give you a visual of that in a couple of slides. If the idea is out of scope, it's more of an enhancement to an existing process, like adding a new field on a form or a facilities idea. Those items get forwarded to the appropriate business areas for consideration. If the idea does not need to be redirected for consideration, the idea is added to the innovation program's backlog to explore in a sprint with the appropriate business areas. Now, we've had 17 submissions since we've gone live, and 14 have been redirected either to technology or the business area that has been impacted, and any idea, regardless if it meets the innovation criteria, improves our operations as an organization. I'm going to give you a simple example of an idea that came through that was redirected to the business area, and it's just adding a box to the direct deposit form where we ask the member to attach their voided check, and we're asking them to attach it with tape instead of staples. That was an idea that came through because the people that are doing the imaging of those forms that are then going to the business area, they're having to unstaple these things, and it seems so simple, but it really does make a big difference. And if you think about the time it takes, that's time saved that they could be doing other things. So again, maybe simple ideas, but every idea is a good one, and it gets processed to the appropriate business area. Now, we did finish one sprint from beginning to end, and that was for retirement readiness. In January, Innovation and Retirement Readiness completed a 9-month sprint to explore new individual session options that are customized to member-specific needs and improve efficiency for both the member and the specialist. The sprint was successful, and Retirement Readiness is exploring ways to implement the new model while thoughtfully balancing benefit impacts right now. Teams are finalizing details, and we'll have more information on this later this year. In addition, we're holding innovation tech partnerships workshops. Since Technology Services currently receives technology requests through an existing ticketing system, and now will also receive ideas through the innovation portal, Ashish and I are sponsoring a series of workshops with the innovation program and parts of technology services to ensure we integrate the teams to explore and test the most promising tech ideas to solve real business challenges. And we determine what resources, until we determine what resources are needed to support this program long-term. There's not a lack of ideas coming through the organization, but we don't have unlimited resources. So we have to make sure as these ideas come through that we're making sure that we're looking at the ideas that can actually provide the most impact for the limited resources that we do have. That's a process that we're going through when we're looking at these. And finally, I wanted to share a couple of slides with you to provide you, visibility into the existing governance process currently used by technology services. And I don't want you to really get too caught up on the words on this slide, but you can see that the items that are in green are really when the business area is working directly with technology services on whatever the idea is that's come through. But the purple boxes are governance. So right now, any idea that comes through that needs a technology solution, there is really good governance already in place. You'll see that there's an enterprise architecture review, there's an ISO review, and there's also a legal review. There's an art review, and I'll tell you what art means. Ashish gave me some good notes. The architecture review team ensures that any proposed solution involving systems, hardware, software, or other system changes are in alignment with CalSTRS IT architecture and planning standards and policy. And then we have another acronym up there, which is the ASC. The ASC is Architecture and Standards Council. The Architecture and Standards Council is responsible for providing oversight, guidance, and ensuring compliance with those planning standards and policies. So we kind of have a twofold there. We've got somebody that's looking at it to make sure that it's in alignment, and then as the idea goes through, we're actually have another committee that's looking at it from a compliance perspective to make sure that we're following all the guidelines that we have in place. And then on this slide, you'll see that we've added a governance box, and this is high-level development process for generative AI concepts. This graphic is the exact same as the one before, but for generative AI ideas, this is a new governance step. Before any request goes through the current process, Tech Services provides the executive team on a weekly basis visibility and explanation of all ideas prior to kicking off workflow to the normal process. This allows us to consistently understand risks, ensure policies are being followed, and prioritize requests that have the biggest impact to our operations and how we support our members. In addition, any existing software that has gone through the process previously that adds AI functionality that wasn't there originally goes back through the approval process, where we can determine if the AI component of the existing software can be turned on or for it to stay off. And if we don't think it's a good idea to turn it on, and there's no way to turn it off, then that's another conversation that we need to have. It might be something that we need to be replaced. So I think that my point there, though, is there's a lot of times where we've purchased software and now it's been enhanced and it has some capability that it didn't have before. And we just want to make sure we're capturing that and we're making sure that that goes back through the process to make sure we understand what that AI capability is. So hopefully this gives you a better understanding of our governance. This will continue to be refined as we learn more going forward and test out how it's working. And that's my presentation. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
We have a few. Good. Mr. Juarez.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. And I'm curious, because you mentioned it's anonymous to protect the identity of people who throw out ideas and not have it necessarily criticized, I assume. But I'm wondering whether there's ways in which you would know who came up with a good idea that led to savings, efficiency, those types of things, because in terms of recognition of employees who went that one step beyond and came up with a good idea, seems to me that we might want to think about recognizing those types of efforts for that employee.
Yeah, what I would say is it's anonymous in the very beginning. But when it's anonymous in the very beginning, but as it comes through the portal, the innovation team is looking at it and they have questions, they resubmit it through the system, and then that's when the person that submitted it, their identity becomes known.
So what about my idea that we recognize that person when such an innovation results in, like I say, significant savings or efficiencies? Have you guys thought about that?
Oh, yeah.
Does it even interest you at all?
No.
We have a huge recognition program here. And so we recognize and track all sorts of improvement opportunity ideas from staff the work that they do currently, recognition tied to projects, achievements. So, yeah, we
So
definitely.
that can be done.
It can be done,
Because I would
absolutely.
think that would get, I mean, people are motivated anyway, but I think that would give a little more motivation. So, anyway,
Yeah. We
I'm
had
glad to know that you do it.
We have a quarterly recognition event, and so what the innovation team is going to do is every idea that comes through, whether it's an innovative idea or it's redirected to a business area, will be acknowledged at the next quarterly recognition event. So that's part of
And
our
we also have a
process.
formal recognition event where there's a monetary award given for a number of staff that are nominated every year. So we have different tiers, yeah.
And that you've brought people forward for the board to see.
Those are the
and I-
ones.
Yep.
And I would
Yeah,
have you continue to do that as well.
thank you.
Just so we
I'm-
know who it is
Yep.
that's doing all this good work.
Love that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That's
Yeah.
perfect.
Publicly acknowledged.
Okay, Mr. Gunning.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Just two questions. Lisa, sprint?
Yeah,
What's a sprint?
okay, I have that here too. I knew you were gonna ask that, so I'm
the
prepared.
sprint, right. No, I think I know what it is.
2 weeks.
So it's a phased process. This is the definition. It's a phased process where a small cross-functional team designs and tests new ideas or solutions to specific challenges. The process is designed to speed up decision-making.
So as we think about innovation, then, are you doing sprints on different innovative ideas? Is that?
Yes, yeah, because it takes time. It takes time to go back to the business area, to do some research on what they want to do. We need to find out if there's any legal implications to it or what have you. But the idea is to get the right people in the room, the small groups, but of the right people, to be able to make decisions quickly and to iterate and fail. He said AI is gonna fail slowly. In this process, we wanna fail fast with innovation.
To-
Yeah.
to move on
So we
to
can
the
move on
next.
to the next idea.
And then how do you know which sprints to make? Is it just everything is open?
Well, no, everything that comes through the process, again,
That's
if it's,
it.
we want it to be something new, we want it to be solving a problem. If it's just something where, we have a process in service retirement and I feel like it could be, amended to do something different, that we're sending to service retirement. So the business areas are getting, so every idea is getting, traction.
Got it.
And is being seen and thought of. And we're keeping the submitter in the loop the whole time, because that's the way the technology works, is that we can submit, they know where their idea is in the process at all times.
And that leads to the final thought, which is how does staff know, or how, is it an email blast to everybody, or how does everyone know?
So that
there's any-
idea accelerator, that's the technology that's being used. The
And where
submitter
is
puts
that?
their idea,
Where is that?
it's on Central.
Okay.
We had a communication strategy around this that was constructed as we were launching the Idea Accelerator. So Teresa and her staff, Karen Doran, that reports up to her, helped us with the communication strategy. There was email blasts out. We're constantly promoting it. We're doing videos on it. So we do a lot of internal communication.
That's what I want, okay. Thank you, Lisa.
I see no other comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any public comments on item 4?
We do have a public comment for item 4. If we could get a 3-minute timer, please. Our comment is from Dawn.
Good afternoon, Don Stauffer with CTA NEA Retired. My question is also kind of a clarification or question. For instance, I'm just imagining myself as an employee of CalSTRS. I might have a question and I would go to a web browser and pull up Gemini to do an AI search, or I might want to work on a document and use Anthropic to help me write it, or I might use something like OpenClaw to go through my emails so that I can summarize everything on a particular subject. Those aren't things that are getting into the CalSTRS software system per se, like Benefit Connect. Those are totally independent. I'm just wondering, but at the same time, those may have a risk as it pertains to the systems used by CalSTRS. And I'm just wondering how that is considered as part of this whole process. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. That is the conclusion of public comment for item 4.
Can I answer?
Or we can answer.
Brian, is that okay to answer?
If you want to, I mean, you're not required to.
Then, Ashish, go ahead.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to lose sleep.
So I think, as we discussed in the previously, the AI, I think I want to assure everyone that whatever the AI capabilities we are using is all in our server, is not going to the public domain. So what everybody is doing, playing with the all these large language model, cloud or ChatGPT and all, is that's the public information they are talking about. We are not putting anything to the AI at this moment.
Thank you very much. Okay, that brings us to the consent. Am I close enough? That brings us to the consent information items, 5A and 5B. Are there any public comments on 5A and 5B?
We do have public comment for 5B. If we could have a 3-minute timer, please. Our comment is from Nicholas.
Good afternoon, members of the board. My name is Nicholas Watson, and I'm speaking on behalf of the California Charter Schools Association. I'd like to thank CalSTRS staff for working to address longstanding concerns raised by charter school educators regarding barriers to full CalSTRS participation, and also for working with the charter school community to discuss possible legislative remedies to additional challenges created by AB 1997. Last March, members of the charter school community attended your board meeting and spoke eloquently about the very real impacts that the exclusion from full CalSTRS participation would have on their retirements. In response, CalSTRS staff took the initiative to develop new employer directives and certification forms. This was a helpful step towards addressing core barriers to full charter participation in CalSTRS, but it did not fully address all of the existing eligibility questions that CalSTRS must answer. We are receiving many questions from our members about issues not resolved by these new documents. We are hopeful we can continue to work with CalSTRS through legislation, if necessary, to resolve the remaining issues. We are also appreciative of CalSTRS' willingness to consider legislative proposals to fix the barriers to full CalSTRS participation created by AB 1997. Unless these changes are enacted, a huge number of charter school administrators who currently perform creditable service will suddenly be removed from CalSTRS on July 1, 2027. This is unacceptable. CCSA looks forward to working with CalSTRS on legislation, bringing this issue to the attention of the many legislators who likely had no idea that AB 1997 made these changes. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comment. That is the conclusion of public comment for item 5B, sorry.
Thank you. That brings us to the consent agenda action items. Number 6, I have a few things to read that are included in this consent item. Firstly, for Audits and Risk Management Committee, the Audits and Risk Management Committee moves to adopt the amended 2025-26 Audit Services Audit Plan and the 26-27 Audit Services Audit Plan. The second thing I need to read is from the Compensation Committee. The Compensation Committee moves the adoption of proposed increases to maximum incentive for the General Counsel and System Actuary, as well as the adoption of maximum incentives for investment positions as presented in Alternative A in the materials in Item 2 to be effective July 1st, 2026. No. Okay, that brings us to needing to take action. Karen has moved it. GQ second it. All those in favor?
Compensation one that you're
This
referring
is
to, right?
item number 6, A, B, C, D, and I just read the 2 things that came from committees that the committees had voted on, but we kind of
Can we
bless it here.
split the two, since they're 2 different items, and we may have 2 different votes on the various items? So one is to accept the
Sure, what would you like
audit.
to do?
Split the 2 votes. One is on the audit, correct, and one is on the compensation?
So you would like to pull item number 3, 6A3 and vote on that? That's the Audits and Risk Management. So I have a motion to pull item number 3 and vote separately.
Correct.
I'll take it that that's the motion. Would someone like to second it?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of item number 3, Audits and Risk Management Committee, the portion that I read for 6A, which was about the audits plans, the audit plans. Okay, all those in favor of item number 3?
Does she have to take a roll?
No, we do not. So let's,
I just want to make sure that what I'm voting on is
6A3.
6A3.
Correct.
That's the only thing we're going to vote on for
right
this.
now, we're taking them separately.
Okay.
Okay, let's try that again. All those in favor of 6A3, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, and then it was requested that we take 6A5 separately. I'll assume that was the motion. Second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of 6A5, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Opposed? Okay.
We're going to abstain.
And 1 abstention. 2 abstentions. Okay, 1 opposed, 2 abstentions. Okay, now circling back, item 6A, 1, 2, 4, and B, C, D. Okay, it's been,
I have a question, a clarifying question on, on just, a question for staff on the contracts approval for the San Francisco. Do I need to take that off if I want to, I have a question about, it doesn't impact my vote, I can do it
let's finish
later
the
if you want
vote and
me.
then we can,
Okay,
is it affecting your vote?
no, it's fine, I'll take it offline, it's fine.
Okay. All those in favor of everything I just read for item 6 that's left?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, that completes item number 6, the action agenda, consent agenda. Did you want to ask your question, or you're good? Okay, sorry, that got a little messy. Okay. Informational items, number 7, we've already done that. Number 8, new business information requests.
I have 2 from item 6, the request for definitions for AI terminology used by CalSTRS and to provide plans to obtain appropriate staffing, expertise, resources needed to address budgeting and support relative to AI.
Thank you. Item number 9, draft agenda for next meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The next meeting is really full of actuarial content, so we'll have quite a bit of time spent on that. It's also the month that we do the annual board chair and vice chair elections, and then we'll be adding the delivery of the AI technology working group recommendations. That's it.
Full schedule. Thank you very much. Are there any public comments?
There are no public comments.
Okay. That concludes the open session portion of our meeting. Would you like to meet out here, or are we good?
I don't think we have anything for closed session.
Okay, perfect.
That's
Then
it.
that concludes the meeting of no, we don't, she just said we have nothing. That concludes our CalSTRS March meeting. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you.